The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Stage Door Show. Tonight my guest is a talented actor who's played the role of Riggs on the popular CBS Paramount series Star Trek Picard. He's also a talented circus arts performer and a model. She's starring in a film set to start filming this coming year entitled Contre-Coup. It's written and directed by James Kerwin, who we've had on the show in the past. So please welcome to the show, Olivia Youngers. Thanks for being with us, Olivia.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. Olivia, I understand that, you kind of grew up a fan of science fiction,
Yes.
Star Trek, and I have to get into this because, what were your thoughts when you got cast in Star Trek Picard? That must have been exciting for you.
The exciting doesn't begin to cover it. I was birthed in science fiction, to be sure. But Star Trek has been the core of what drove science fiction, I think, for me. So getting on Star Trek at all is like the ultimate dream. So now everything's just gravy.
Yeah, for sure. So when you grew up, did you watch the old, because I know sometimes they still show the old Star Trek, the original William Shatner Star Trek, and obviously it's fun to watch those shows because of the effects obviously are what they are, but it's just amazing, the storylines. And did you kind of get into the old, the history of Star Trek and then as it's evolved over the years?
I am behind on some of the newer stuff because there's so much of it now, which is a delightful problem to have.
Right.
If we're talking TOS through Enterprise, I've seen everything.
Yeah.
So more than once.
Pretty amazing. And this just being in the industry, when you're on a show like that, do you prefer now? There's obviously there's people that do fiction, nonfiction, science fiction. Is there a certain type of acting that you prefer to do over another, like playing actual characters that existed at one time, let's say, versus a character that's in a science fiction based show?
So I definitely. Genre is my home. I love genre. So I love sci-fi. I love fantasy. But I also am very attracted to getting to play, anything that's deeply dramatic where I get to pour trauma out. But also comedy. I've been finding a new home there as well in realizing that I'm kind of a clown. So, but certainly fiction. I think I haven't had a chance to play any biographical type pieces yet, so I don't know where I would fit in there. I would love the chance to try for the right fit.
How did you, when you grew up and got into, first of all, how did you get into acting and at what age and, what kind of interested you to get into that role or that field?
So I think I've always been acting to a certain degree as a kid. I was very, very interested in it. I had a babysitter who used to keep notes for my parents, and she remarked, when I was like 4, this girl better grow up to be a model or an actress because, I liked telling stories and playing make-believe. So that was always there. And I did, school plays and stuff growing up. I didn't dedicate myself to it. Once I got out of high school and into college, I chose to pursue a STEM degree for a while first and kind of diversify my world because part of loving genre and sci-fi is that I also loved science as a result, but I could never really get away from the desire to keep playing. And when I moved to LA, I decided I was going to actually give it a shot and see, hey, what can I do with this passion that is there and keeps me up at night?
We have a lot of people that listen that are artists themselves. And, you mentioned something that kind of caught my attention is that, you have a degree in like a science-based, field. And so do you think, for people obviously out there, there's a lot of people that are so passionate about acting that they'll give up everything to go pursue it, but they don't have anything to fall back on. And do you think if you're in the arts, obviously it's the unknown, really. You're not really sure. There was a strike that just happened, and do you think it's smart to have something to fall back on in case the acting isn't always fruitful? Is that a good, is it something that's smart to have something to fall back on or even have a day job at some point?
Well, so all actors have to have day jobs these days.
Yeah.
Even really well-established ones. You need to have side hustles. I don't I don't want to say that it's not smart to not have that backup, because I don't want to fault anyone who says, no, this is my passion, I'm throwing myself at it
Right.
150%. I actually really admire those folks.
Yeah.
But I think the practical side of it is that you'll find yourself needing something, unless you're really, really at the top of the top, especially post pandemic. And like you said, with the strike, it is still hard for working actors to be able to consistently maybe support themselves. So having something you can do, it can be another artistic endeavor. It doesn't have to be science. It doesn't have to be an office job. But I think, as actors in general, we tend to become multi-hyphenates in part just because the more you learn, the more informed you are about characters. So there will always be something else you can do, and probably will end up needing.
So how has it changed for you? I mean, with since the strike and COVID, and everything is basically now self-tape, doing auditions like that. Is that still like that? And are there any in-person auditions anymore, or is it all self-tape still?
It is self-tapes, and I'm sure you've heard this because you're clearly aware of them. They're both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
The upside is that it's so much easier to do the auditions with respect to your time. The hard part is that now it's not just show up and do your job and maybe wear the right outfit. It's you're directing, you're producing, you're controlling the lighting. You've got to make sure that the video file is right. You have to make sure you find a reader, which sometimes can be the hardest part, is just finding someone who can read the lines with you. So, like I said, acting now more than ever, you are a multi-hyphenate. You've got to wear multiple hats.
And then also when you're doing the self-tape, I mean, you're not getting that immediate reaction from the casting folks. And, sometimes I'm guessing that you send in the self-tape and you're not sure first of all, they're going to watch it. And if they're watching it, how many more are they watching? And you might not hear for weeks up to months sometimes, right?
Well, you don't hear if you don't get the part.
You just don't hear anything.
Yeah, just don't hear back. And that's true. And you're right, actually. When you're in the room, you at least know that they're seeing you because they're in front of you. You don't know. There could be maybe your self-tape was an hour too late in theory. Although if you get in under the deadline, they're supposed to watch all of them. But do they actually watch all of them? We don't ever know. Not really.
Yeah. Right.
What if your file was labeled incorrectly and it got lost? You'll never know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what do you do? You almost have to just do it and just kind of put it to bed and go to the next project, right? I mean, in a way, right?
Everyone has their own process, and maybe it sounds pessimistic, but I try to go into the audition telling myself, hey, you're not going to get the part, but you got the audition, so just have fun. And don't worry about it. And I consider the audition the job, and after I've done the audition, I've done my job.
Yeah.
If I get a part after, great.
What happened with Star Trek though? When you auditioned for that, how long did it take to hear back from them, and like what was that process like?
I don't remember how long, but it really was not very long at all. And that's been the way with everything that I've booked. I find out day of, if not a couple days later. I mean, max 2 days later. So wow. I always know if after, I'll allow a week, but after a week, I know I just let it go.
That's it. Yeah.
Let it go.
You just have to let it go. So when you're on this, talk about being on the set of Star Trek Picard. I mean, in your episodes, talk about that process. What was it like walking onto the set for the first time and going into hair and makeup and all that? I mean, what was that experience like for you?
I kept telling myself, don't be a fangirl and don't throw up, especially because Frakes directed my first episode. And
oh, wow.
All I could think was, oh my God, what if I get so anxious and I throw up on Jonathan Frakes? And then that was in I couldn't, but as soon as I got to set, everyone was so lovely. And my cover was immediately blown by a couple folks who I had known who knew I was a Star Trek fan. So okay. But it's not, there used to be a stigma, I think, too, around being a fan and working on a project, but that's gone now. Actually, people love it when fans work on something like Star Trek. Being able to say I grew up watching it and worked on it meant that everyone was like thrilled that I was there, because it meant that I love this thing that they're making. I was coming into it already with love. That that made it really special.
What's your favorite part about being in the acting field? What's your favorite part of it?
So I am an extremely anxiety prone person, ADHD, like just, but when I'm acting, everything
Really?
else clears out. Everything else clears out. And then I am just, it's weird, but I kind of know that a scene was most successful if when it's over, I can barely remember what happened.
Really?
Because
Okay.
I've allowed myself to be in the moment. And
Yeah.
that's a challenge. I am not a good person who's good at meditating.
Yeah.
Acting is like meditation for me. I'm able to be in the moment, and I know that a scene was really successful when that happens because it means that you were listening and paying attention, and that's the hardest part. And then I just get this euphoria. So it's
Yeah.
indescribable.
So when you get in the the script or the sides or I don't know how that works in the TV world, but how long do you have to actually memorize the lines? And do they give you the lines ahead of time, or do you get them right when you come on to the set? How does that work normally?
So it depends on the production. And script revisions are happening constantly. So you might have the script for even a week, but then you could get a new revision the night before or the morning of.
Wow.
Usually when that happens, it's not too extensive. I did do an episode of Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah.
that.
Yep. Exactly.
Had been on in the 90s, and
Yeah.
I didn't know they were still making new episodes, but they are for
Yeah.
Germany. They don't air in the US.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know James Brolin's in it. I saw he's
A
that
ton
he
of
was
people
in
have
there.
been doing it.
Yeah, a lot of actors. Yeah.
They film it in the US with American actors and then dub it over for the German market. And when I got cast on that, it was in the role of the younger sister. And then they had another actress they were going to bring in who looked younger than me. So like 2 days before, they were like, actually, we'd like you to play the older sister now. And I was like, oh, okay.
wow.
So learn all new lines. Okay,
Pivot.
great. Sure.
Yeah.
And then the night before they came back and they were like, so actually, she's not doing it anymore. We're bringing in the original person we had. So can you go back to playing the younger sister? And also, by the way, here are some script revisions.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
But that my job is to roll with it and learn.
Right. Yeah.
And
Adapt, right? Yeah.
and adapt. And so I did, and it was fine. And the upside to doing film and television as opposed to say theater is that since you're filming the same scene multiple times over and over, it's kind of like in smaller chunks. So even if there is a switch up, it's not like you're relearning 10 pages on the spot.
Right.
You can go page by page or whatever. And also, if you know your character really well, and when the writing is there, the lines are not actually difficult to memorize or learn, even with those changes, because they should make sense to your character. If you understand them, what they're saying is going to make it so it flows. And if you're paying attention and in the scene and in the moment, it kind of just comes out. It might not be 100% word perfect, but you get there.
So how do you're in the circus arts as well, and so talk about that, because I know you do a lot of aerial type work. I have a great respect for people in the circus arts. I met a few circus artists, recently when I was in Orlando, when I lived there, a lot of people at Cirque du Soleil and, people that lived in the area, so it's just a lot of respect for that. And it just takes a lot of discipline, a lot of strength, discipline, and just a lot of practice, so talk about how did you get into that? And, is that something that kind of helps you, I guess, stay focused on, because I think it's a type of art that I think would, because of the way you, I think, if this makes sense, use your brain, to have that discipline. Does that help you in other aspects of your performing life?
It definitely does. So I had done some dance growing up, mostly things like swing dancing, because I was a huge geek in high school, and that's where we all went, was swing club along with chess club.
That's cool.
And I knew I had always wanted to be a dancer, but just wasn't able to do that growing up. And I started circus arts with dance. I actually picked up pole dancing as a way of trying to get a little more comfortable with physicality in my body and movement, because I knew that would be beneficial to my acting one day. And from there, that kind of turned into a lot of the studios in LA that teach pole dance also teach other aerial apparatuses and circus arts. And so you kind of start with one, and then you try a second apparatus, and now suddenly I've got like 5 or 6 that I do.
Yeah.
Because it just becomes like this, ooh, you see something, it's like, ooh, that's fun. And they all kind of inform each other. And so certainly that and circus arts keeps me in the live stage world a
Right.
bit because I do shows, and so that helps with stage presence, certainly with body mechanics and body awareness, and I think has freed me up a lot as an actress,
Yeah.
with just being able to be physical in scenes, which is great.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. You know, my daughter grew up doing dance competitively, and she did a lot of, I think they call it silks or something like that.
Yeah,
Silks.
silks is
Yeah.
the only one that I don't do, actually.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, she loved it. I mean, that was something, you know, was outside of her realm, and she just had so much fun doing it. And I think again, you know, she talked about the discipline and things like that that goes along with it. So I think, you know, that's amazing that you do that. So again, you know, that's fantastic. You know, you have a movie coming out that you're going to be filming with a director. We mentioned that in the beginning,
Yes.
called Contre-Coup, and I know it's going to be filming in 2025. And not sure exactly what you can talk about on that, but is there anything that our listeners can get excited about on that movie that's going to be filmed?
Yes, so I'm very excited about this film. I feel very, very blessed and lucky that my friend James Kerwin asked me to come be a part of it. And I don't, you know, I can't give away anything really about the
Right,
plot.
right.
I think I love genre, and this is definitely in genre. It is another science fiction project. And I love those movies where I think the ending will have people wanting to talk to each other about what they just saw and
Sure.
kind of what does it mean and how they respond to it. I love films that leave people maybe with different interpretations or different feelings, so that way you can kind of discuss and debate. I mean, sci-fi fans, one of our favorite things to do is argue and debate with each other.
Yeah, right, of course.
So I definitely think this film will get people talking and discussing kind of what they think about how it's going to end. I'm very thrilled to be playing this character that I get to bring to life. She's a scientist, so I get to really bring my own background in STEM and bring that into informing who she is, but at the same time kind of learn some new things because she works more in
Yep.
maybe more like the physics side of the world, and my background is in biotech, which are related but not necessarily the same fields, right? So it's something where it's familiar and new for me. I think she's a really interesting character. I like the journey. I'm so thrilled that I get to go on like a whole journey and an arc with her
Yeah.
that I'm really looking forward to. And I'm really looking forward to working with my friend James, and the other cast so far that have all been brought on are all, I think, Star Trek and Doctor Who alums. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I am anticipating just a big sci-fi family fest happening.
Right. So you're looking forward to this. This has got to be an amazing process for you. You know, and just I want to just ask you for some advice that, you know, for our listeners who are just kind of getting started, or maybe, you know, just getting, you know, into the acting field or any kind of arts. From your experience, you know, to this point, you know, what kind of advice would you have for somebody that's looking to get into it? Maybe doesn't know a lot about, you know, the reality of the business, but what kind of advice would you have for somebody that's getting started just now?
Sure. The first thing is have friends who will keep you sane, because it's hard, and you know, like we were saying with the self tapes, you know you're not going to hear back, but it starts to wear on you over and over and over again. So having friends who usually are other actors who will understand it, who you can just vent to, especially when you're having like your days where you're just feeling so discouraged, keeps you from just losing it completely. So definitely have those folks you can lean on. Invest in good home equipment for self tapes, because I don't think they're going away anytime soon. And take as many classes as you can, and not just acting classes, any skill that you think you find interesting. You never know what may help you with a character. I had an audition recently for a part. They were looking for actresses who had experience with being mermaids and owned their own mermaid tails. Well, that was me. So
really? That's amazing. Oh, that's cool.
I was like, hey, I own 5, so at least let me audition for this. You genuinely don't know what will play out in a role someday, and everything you learn exposes you to different people, different ways of thinking, different ways of using your mind, and that all leads to a larger understanding of humanity and more complex characters overall.
Yeah, completely agree.
That's how I
great advice.
excuse the 5 million hobbies that I have.
Right. I think it's awesome that you have so many hobbies. That's awesome. Everybody, I think, needs hobbies out there to, keep their mind busy. So, before we go, Olivia, what do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done? What do you want to leave behind to your fans when it's all said and done?
I just want to know that something I do at some point gives someone comfort when they're going through something hard. And it doesn't have to mean that what I did was the most dramatic thing. Sometimes comedy is the thing that pulls people out. I would just like to know that at some point, something I did that brought me joy also helped someone.
Yeah, that's incredible. Just well said, and thank you for that. I'm really excited to hear more about this film this summer. So, or this year, whenever it's being filmed. So please come back and let us know about it. And
I'm very excited. I was really thrilled when I got to read the script, and I think I drove James a little nuts because I like to read a script twice over before I comment on it. But
Sure.
I didn't, but scripts are long, so I wanted to give it time, and so I think I I need to be better about doing that and being fast on it, because I'm so lucky to get to be working on this, and I wish I could say more about it. It's suspense, it's sci-fi, it's got some great female characters in it. I think it's very much relevant to things that are happening in the sci-fi genre, but it's a new take on things, so it should
Sure.
feel fresh.
Well, we're excited about it, and we're just honored to have you on the show. And again, you're always welcome back, Olivia, and wish you nothing but success to you in your career. Again, and just great to have you on. So, happy holidays to you.
Great, thanks. Same to you.